What's happening, everybody? It's Fourth in Dynasty here on the Dynasty Pros podcast. Brian and Cody here to break down all of the madness that's coming to the trade deadline. We're a couple days removed from it. We've digested. We're here to spit it all out after we've digested it. If I can speak properly, I'm tripping over my words. So excited after all these big moves. Tyreek Hill trade. No. T. Higgins trade. No. Khalil Herbert. We had some excitement, right?
We want to bring up the elephant in the room. What about Sunday night?
Yeah, I try to move right past that. I was going to see if we could keep you excited. A little magic over here, show you all the fun with the trade deadline. We can forget how my boys got.
Especially that first half, I was like, what is happening? I thought we were both just trash, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it was as close as it was. I figured we would have got absolutely stomped, but
yeah, I did. Like I said, I messaged you. I was like, the points doesn't even correlate to how much we dominated that game. It shows now why we have JJ McCarthy, right? And that's why everyone's excited, because I think the core is there, and then we get the young guy coming in later. It's nice to actually have
future.
Yeah, it's weird. So we've never had that. It's like these last few weeks, you've seen Sam Darnold starting to miss some throws or not seeing him at all. You're like, there's the down. I'm like, it's not really a downfall. He's still winning games and stuff, but it's like, okay, he's not the franchise. If he was 8-0, there'd be fanatic fans out there thinking he should be getting signed and stuff. So thankfully,
luckily he's doing just good enough to do well for the team, but not good enough where it's going to cause you a controversy in the offseason.
Yeah.
If anything, it just acquires you maybe a third round, compensatory pick. Gotta love that.
Yeah, love picks. First thing I want to get to you today. Do you like point bonuses in your leagues? Like if they have a 100-point game, then there's a point bonus or anything like that?
If they're done right, I think they are fun. Coming out of when I first started fantasy, it was mainly on ESPN. Back in like 2008, 2010, right in that area.
Ourselves, but yes.
Yeah, freaking back in high school. But back then, messing with the settings wasn't a thing. You kind of went with the defaults. But as I grew, my love grew for the game, and I started losing to people I shouldn't lose. I was like, all right, there's some finesse that needs to happen here. So a lot of the game theory, I think, of fantasy football comes down to roster construction and point base. So I'm all down for those point accelerators, but I want them to be mindful throughout the entire league. So like if you're doing running backs getting all these extra boosts, well, maybe we have to roster more running back, or we have to start more running backs because of that, or just have something that offsets those different things. But I'm not opposed to it. I love points.
So, full point PPR league that I'm in, tight ends get an accelerator, so they get 1.5 points per reception. So that's the first thing they get. Now, before I go further, who do you think had the more impactful game for the Chiefs? Travis Kelce or DeAndre Hopkins last week on Monday night?
Hopkins with the 2 touchdowns.
Okay, so in this league, Hopkins, 8 receptions, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns, 28.6 fantasy points. Travis Kelce, 14 receptions, 100 yards, 35 points.
I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, wait a second, didn't he have double digit? That's right, yeah.
At the end of regulation, before overtime, I was up 12.2 points. And in overtime, he had 3 receptions, so 4.5 points for 22 yards, 2.2 points. And he got to the 100 yards, so 6 extra points for 100 yards. So just, I say this in regards to if the point accelerator, if a 100-yard game is as important as touchdowns, that makes it kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. So either you make the point bonus is 4 points, or you make touchdowns 8 if you want to keep the high score. That I don't care about. Just it can't be the same as a touchdown because the touchdowns are way too important.
Yeah, I get that. I get, again, that's kind of where the balance is. Like, I don't mind giving tight ends extra points. Most of my dynasty leagues, it's tight end premium. I think it does help the overall sport. My redraft, or I guess it's a keeper league, my home league anyway. I'm going to try and put in some sort of beneficiary for tight ends a little bit, kind of make that a little bit more competitive in our league. But it's all about how much. You can't have people absolutely breaking it, or 2 or 3 players that just absolutely break it, and then the others that can't compete, because then it kind of it takes the fun out of it, especially when it's a player that's kind of projected that way. Yeah, tight end's a little different this year. It wasn't quite how we saw it, but yeah, that's 35 points from a tight end on a
It was a
good
good game.
night.
Don't get
It
me
was a good
wrong,
game,
but he didn't
yeah.
get any touchdowns. So
That's
it was just,
wild.
going in 12.2 points, I felt pretty good as long as it wasn't a long touchdown. If it was a touchdown, I can live with it. Well, then he scores 12.7 yards in overtime, and he didn't even get the touchdown, but he had 3 receptions for 22 yards, and that gets him 12.7 points, and I lose by 0.5.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of
I was
points.
not happy to say the least, but we move on to DeAndre Hopkins. Should we really be surprised?
Does it continue? Like, I mean, 2 touchdowns. I know that can't continue, but like, do you think that he can give us wide receiver 2 the rest of the way at least?
I think the 8 for 86, I think you can put that in the bank, in my opinion.
And it's somebody he can. Patrick Mahomes can finally rely on a guy. I don't think since Tyreek Hill he's had somebody he can in and out fully rely on. Rushy Rice, I'm sure, as we were coming into this year too, building more of a
Yeah.
rapport, it probably would have been there by the end of the season. He's pretty sure-handed, but
And
yeah,
Kelsey's
DeAndre
always the
Hopkins.
security blanket, which
Hmm.
on the broken plays is where Travis Kelsey excels. We all know this. So it's just the one when the play isn't broken, who can always get open and has hands. That's DeAndre Hopkins.
And Hopkins is like he was like tearing up in the post game. Like he hasn't had a good quarterback or one that can keep his hands to himself like his entire career. So this is just I'd be pumped too, dude. You started off with the Titans, and now look at you. You got Super Bowl aspirations on you.
Yep. And I think it just, yeah, it goes to show that patience does work out, and the rich just get richer in this aspect because the Chiefs. I don't know where their loss is. Hopefully, it's coming soon, but it's just they're looking like a wagon, and Patrick Mahomes doesn't even look good.
I thought DeAndre Hopkins might be one of the worst. Not I say worst out of all of the trades they could have made. Like whether it be Adams, Deontay Johnson, all those guys. I was like kind of like is DeAndre Hopkins on that wash side? Can he really
Mm-hmm.
contribute? No, it's just Will Levis is that bad. He wasn't making him look good at all. So
When
yeah,
I did, he was on my sell list, and I sold him right when he got traded to the Chiefs for a second. Now I wish I would have held out for a few weeks. I bet I could have gotten a late first. So
that's
it just is what
interesting.
it is. I'm all right with that. I'm happy with the second that I got, but it's also like that's the risk, right? I didn't know if he had it in him still, so I'm gonna go with the point of I know he's going to the Chiefs, so he's got higher value than he would have if he throws up a few duds. So I just went with that. So
Oh, dude, I am struggling. My bad.
you're good, no problem.
Oh, I'm fighting off a sneeze here, folks. Sorry for all the weird faces there. Leaves are dumping in my yard, and yeah, I mowed them, mulched them, threw them in the bag, and screwing with me a little bit, evidently. Firings. We had some firings. The axe came down. Dennis Allen, get out of town, dude. Look at that. The Saints. I mean, are they going to win this week? Are they going to beat
Yes,
the Falcons because of this?
if Olave plays, maybe, but who knows if he's going to play or not.
Okay, I know that's wasn't up on the thing, but let me ask
He's
Olave.
talking
Where are we at with that? This is now concussion 4 in the NFL in year
for
3.
2 years or 3 years, right?
3 years. Yeah, he's got 4. Plus, he had one I think his senior year with Ohio State. So he's had several concussions. Now this is the second one this year.
Yep.
I know we haven't really got much information on how long he's going to be out. He should be out for sure this week. I think he should be out multiple weeks. I think the Saints should even consider holding him out just the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Might be a little extreme because it's only week 10, but like this is your only shiny piece that you have left on this team. Alvin Kamara is great. He is what he is, but he's 30 on a horrible contract. So Olave's all you've got. Take care of him.
I agree with you totally. And I mean, we can't talk about the Saints and without the rant from Twitter the past weekend too. Michael Thomas was not talking very nice about Derek Carr, and it's kind of looking justified a little bit. I mean, he's always putting his receivers in precarious situations, and now his top 3 guys are out. He made Michael Thomas out of the late. There's more to the Michael Thomas thing, but he always led him to be injured. He always leads his wide receivers to be injured. It seems like he doesn't throw them open. He just throws them into tight windows all the time.
Yeah, he sees open and he throws. It's not a great situation. You feel bad for Olave, young
Yeah.
player. I mean, he was what borderline like wide receiver 10ish in Dynasty, somewhere probably between people's like wide receiver 7 and 14, somewhere in there.
You think he's still there or no?
That's my question. As Dynasty owners, I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I don't think I would want to move him now. I feel like this probably is the basement of his value, just because there's so many questions up in the air. We saw Tua's value the first time these concussions really popped up, how volatile it made his value. But I mean, are you buying? I guess if you can find a nervous owner.
Yeah, but I'm at least going to kick the tires because if there's a contending team with Olave, and I throw him, let's just say, a Terry McLaurin and a Michael Pittman, would he take it?
Yeah, probably.
Because it's like, I'm not contending. I want the better piece, but I'm giving you two options. Now you have more options for your flex or even wide receiver position, and you're not losing your standing. Like, yeah, they're not, 30-point guys or even 20-point guys, but they're still going to fill up the stat sheet at some point.
Yeah, I think Mooney's a great guy. It's
Yeah.
probably somebody you've had sitting on your bench for years at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe even got him off waiver wires this summer. He's performed amazing this year. Like if you go in there and a contending team, they would absolutely love to have Mooney. The Atlanta has a great wide receiver schedule going forward, so you're not buying Drake London at this point. So Mooney, yeah, I don't. Do you think Mooney in a second gets it done for Olave, or do you think Mooney
Probably.
another piece in a second?
Maybe. I'm going to a league right now where this is going to be live on air. I have a guy, the Olave owner. He is 1 second. He's on the outside looking in. No, he's second in the league right now. So, and there's like four of us looming behind him at 5-4. He's at 6-3. The other guy's at 7-2 in first place. If I throw him Terry McLaurin and Michael Pittman, you think he takes it?
I think so.
Perfect. I'm gonna try her out. That's for sure.
We're gonna kick the tires.
But with that, we can move on to just when are the injuries gonna stop? Are they ever gonna stop?
Yeah, Dak Prescott, severe injury. Looks like he could go to IR. He's going to be missing multiple weeks. CD Lamb could potentially miss some time. He's a little banged up as well. Is it Trey Lance time? Is
don't tickle my giblets. I hope so.
Up in a dynasty league, he was on one of the waivers.
It's like I said, I want the pure chaos. Him coming in, just him and let's just talk about it. Cowboys acquired Jonathan Mingo and a 20-25 second for a 25 fourth round pick. So the best case scenario, right, is Jonathan Mingo goes out on the other side of CeeDee Lamb, and Trey Lance is there. They're 3-0 going after the Thanksgiving game. Everything's hunky-dory. You got your wide receiver 2. You have CeeDee Lamb, and you got your quarterback of the future, Trey Lance, with your $50 million quarterback as your backup.
I mean, where are you with Jonathan Mingo? Second-year player, second-round pick for the Panthers. He was, I mean, as far as like metrics to really look at, it's yards per route run. It's one of the big ones. He was kind of underneath that line that you want to see. I did have him in a few places because I thought for the Panthers, Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's the exact reason that I drafted him in rookie drafts 2 years ago, is because I was like, all right, look, somebody's got to be the number one for the Panthers. Clearly wasn't him.
I'm conflicted because he's kind of just another Jalen Tolbert to me. So they already have that guy. I don't know why they traded for it. So
because they're going all in. Duh, all in.
Yeah. And they're going to leave Ezekiel Elliott on the bus apparently. So, but another injury. I don't think it's that serious. Drake London with the hip pointer. Would you, even if with the hip, do you still play him if he's active?
If he's active, I'm playing him. They are playing the Saints this week. So that's my big
Okay.
concern is the Saints have nobody. Like as far as fantasy goes, you're starting Taysom Hill and Kamara, and that's it. So can the Saints even put up enough points to make this game competitive? I think that Bijan and Algier can shut down the game. London may have to have like what three catches for 34 yards. Maybe he gets a touchdown just to icing on the cake, but I don't think he's going to be required to do a whole lot. So maybe you like the chance just to sit him. Maybe the Falcons sit him just to give him that day rest because the Anthony
Yeah. Yeah.
Richardson evidently could have played right after his. Then it sitting him for 2 weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if London misses a game, especially the one that should be pretty easy for him.
Yeah, I think it's if he was going to sit one out, it'd be this. As a fantasy owner of Drake London, I don't like that, but it's also for the long term. It's for the better. I'd rather have him for playoffs than a week 9 or a week 10 matchup. So, last one I want to talk to you about because I think it's really intriguing for Dynasty. Eric All tore his ACL. He goes to IR. I'm an owner of Eric All in a bunch of leagues. If I'm not, I'm trying to get him right now.
I was going to say,
What are your
look, we're
thoughts?
not happy for an injury, but I think that
No.
might be best case scenario for acquiring him.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I'd go pick him up everywhere because his value, I mean, what was he? Probably a third, fourth round rookie pick for you. I mean,
Yeah.
no, he didn't. I doubt he went in the second round in any
No.
drafts. So yeah, late pick. There's hardly any capital there. ACL, so he's out. Gesicki shining. He is on a 1 year deal, so there's a chance he could get re-signed there. I still wouldn't be too worried about it. Rookie tight ends, it may take him a couple of years before he's really shining. But yeah, I think you could get him for. I think a third round pick would fetch him.
Yeah, I would give it that up if I was contending and someone wanted him. Um, I wanted to see because it's just I know Gesicki is shining and stuff like that, but also he was starting to take out the share count with or the share snap percentage with Eric All as well. So I mean, it was getting closer, and I think Eric All actually overtook him there for a while for tight end one just because of his blocking ability. Now I know
That's
blocking ability doesn't help with fantasy, but
it
if
puts
he's
you
on
on
the
the
field
field.
more, yeah,
And that's the hard thing with Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki's only had 2 games this year where he's had over 50% snap share. He's at a 50 and a 53% game. Last week was only 36 when he was the tight end one. The other game he was 47% when he was tight end 5 earlier in the season. So Mike Gesicki's efficiency play right now. So I don't think that. I think Eric All, even
yep.
if Gesicki comes back next year, Gesicki will be 30. He'll be 30 years old next season.
Well,
Yeah.
I have them up, and to my surprise, Drew Sample has the most offensive snaps for tight end at 50%. And then
Ugh.
Eric All is second at 231, and Gesicki's in third at 224. So
It's
he's been getting more and more snaps every week, and then he tears his ACL. Yes, so it's like obviously Drew Sample's not the guy, and Mike Gesicki, like you've been saying, he's older and he's on a 1 year deal. They might believe in Eric All. Unfortunately, it's the same knee as he had in college, so that's worrisome. But he might not be ready for week 1 of next year. But he's obviously part of their game plan.
And it's nice to see that Jamar Chase really thrives with another threat on the field. He's not doing as hot without Higgins. That's why the tight end position's thriving with Gesicki. So Higgins moving on this season, Jermaine Parton, we're seeing issues with him already. They're probably going to draft another wide receiver, but
Yeah.
Eric All might be a pretty good part of this offense next year. He might be built in as possibly that number 2 threat on there, or Gesicki, or just the tight end position in general, depending on what direction they go.
What
There's
do you
gonna be a
think?
lot of wide receivers hitting free agency this year, though.
Well, now let's play hypothetical. Who do they draft? Tet McMillan? Oof. Tez Johnson from Oregon? Oof.
Oh, I know that name. I do
The
know that
Oregon or
name.
the Tet McMillan's the Arizona wide receiver.
Okay.
He's pretty good. He's a little bit taller. He would fill in the Higgins role pretty nice if he's there. So that'd be interesting to see. I like both of those guys there, but this is one of those years that I'm not really sold on a lot of the wide receivers, and it's usually wide receiver heavy. This year is very running back heavy, so I think we're going to see really tough. It's going to be a really tough first round, I think.
We've
In
been
this,
really spoiled the last 4 years too.
yeah,
Like a
Yeah.
lot of really good talent coming out.
I mean, you can even argue. Now we're getting in the weeds here, and we'll talk way more about this in the off season. But even the quarterback position, like there's debate on who's number one. I have my number one and number two pretty solid already, but there's arguments with like five guys. And if there's an argument for five guys at like QB1 for this year, there's probably not one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I would put Shadur Sanders and Jalen Milrow 1 and 2, and based off play style, they could be flip flopped. So that's just my opinion. So it's just, and I mean, I can see the case for Cam Ward and even Jackson Dart and even Quinn Ewers, but I'm not as high on Quinn Ewers as others. But it's like the master of none, right? Like you're kind of good at everything, but a master of none. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully that's enough to be a game manager in the NFL. Like, we're always rooting for good quarterbacks. The more good quarterbacks I have, the more good football we can have. So you got to root for these guys, but at the same time, it's all about where they land, the draft cap. There's so many intangibles that go into this. It's not even fun. I mean, look at Brock Purdy. Nobody
yeah,
thought he was good by the NFL standards, clearly, and he's functioning as a starting quarterback.
yeah,
Zach
yeah,
Wilson's
for
going
sure.
as the top three quarterback, and he can't find his place right now. So
He's getting beat out by an older guy that got drafted this year in the Broncos, and Bo Nix.
God, they were
Let's stay
playing.
with the team, the Bengals. They acquire an interesting because Zach Moss is now on IR, so they acquire Khalil Herbert from the Bears. I've seen a lot of people that are happy about it and not too fond of it. I think I mean, it gets Herbert on the field. So if you have ownership in Khalil Herbert, I think it's good for you. He's finally going to at least find the field. He wasn't in with the Bears anymore. He was just out of rotation. So I think him and Chase Brown really match up really well.
I think so too. I mean, it was pretty obvious when you saw that Zach Moss went to IR that they were going to have to bring somebody in,
Yeah.
and I think it's just good. Like, it's nice because it's a good enough talent level that if Chase Brown goes down, I have full confidence that Khalil Herbert would be a nice, probably RB1 to RB2
Yep.
rest of the season. He the running back position does very well there in Cincinnati, and then also the fact that he's coming in there, but he's not going to be good enough that he's going to overtake and overshine Chase Brown. I still think Chase Brown will see a good amount of the work. You can see Khalil Herbert fill in that Zach Moss role, doing some of the pass catching, have 50% of the snaps, but Chase Brown's operating with his fantasy points on 50% of the snaps. So
Yep.
I think it works okay for both parties, where Herbert won't cut into him unless something happens to Brown, and that's might be where the gold really is.
Yeah, I think he's at least if he's on your waivers, definitely go pick him up. But the owners that have him, I'm a lot happier today than I am last week
Yeah.
when he wasn't even playing at all. Before we go to the next and last trade that we have, does Luke Getzey, the offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders, getting fired, does that bump up anyone in your eyes or no in that offense?
No, I think it's just because they know Pierce needs to go. He's not the guy, but he's a first year coach, and he's just too good for morale. So I think this is just for the fans. Hey,
Okay.
we're showing you that we understand a trade. Something needs to happen, but we're not going to fire Pierce mid-season. He might make it back next year. I think
It's kind of
he's a
tough.
great DC. I just don't think he's the head coach type of guy.
I agree, and I mean but it just seems like you keep him there, you bring in Dion, and you bring in Shadur because Tom Brady, he's really good friends with Tom Brady as part owner. I think that turns it around a little bit pretty quickly, and then we're going to see a lot more stock in the Raiders. So it's
If
just I think you fired the right guy because Luke Getzey is not good.
yeah,
He wasn't good with the Bears. He's not good now. So it's just like let's just see what we have with some of these young guys that he wasn't incorporating, like a Trey Tucker, and let's just see what we have so then we know what we need to go get.
100%. 100%.
So
Yeah, if Pierce is going to succeed, he needs to be in a situation like D'Amico Ryans or Campbell up in Detroit. These are defensive guys. I don't love defensive head coaches because like they don't typically do well unless you have a very strong supporting cast. And both those guys have amazing head coach worthy OCs. So I think that's
yep.
what Pierce is going to need is a somebody who just hasn't gotten the offer yet, but that's that style. But OC that can go in there and completely take care of that side. He doesn't have to worry about any of it.
Yeah, and I think it might be difficult for Pierce to find that just because he is not part of a coaching tree.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have some of those guys that he's been assistants with that might be that guy. Maybe Mike Kafka. Maybe he can prime off of Dable. But does that move the needle?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know if Kafka even is a guy because he has Daniel Jones, and we know he's the problem, so you can't really fault Kafka for that either. But I think that might be the name to watch.
Maybe Clint Kubiak too. I know he's good, but just because the Saints clear out the head coach, new head coach might want to bring in his own OC. So Clint Kubiak
And
might
then,
be on the
who
market.
they brought in as a special assistant that's also very good friends with the Kubiaks? Norv Turner.
Oh God! If I don't hear his name again, it would be too soon.
Well, and then the last writing on the wall. Mike Williams finally gets moved off from the Jets. The Steelers acquire Mike Williams for a 2025 fifth-round pick. What are your thoughts?
I honestly think this might be the best thing to happen to the Steelers for us to have relevance in the Steelers. I've kind of turned a leaf on George Pickens. The amount of just penalties and touchdowns that just haven't turned his way. He's got better days ahead of him. The running game's going to struggle in the schedule they have going forward. I think Russell Wilson works well with Pickens. So Pickens as at least redraft and acquire cheap right now, and I really like him. And Mike Williams is the best wide receiver to come in and not challenge him for targets, but put another threat on the other side of the field so they don't just focus on Pickens. He's also a deep threat, so we might see some fantasy relevance out of him just because we know Wilson likes to throw it deep. So you have that, but it's just that added threat to give Pickens just a little bit more time. He's good at, he's shifty. He can make his moves, get open, catch those just insane catches. So I really like it for this offense, just not to overshadow anything, but just help it move along.
I think it's going to help out Calvin Austin in the slot a lot too, and even Pat Freiermuth again, because now it's just another option that they have to guard downfield that they can't just play zone all the time. Because if you're playing zone
to him though.
To Mike Williams? I think so, yeah.
No, to Freiermuth.
No, I don't think so. But it's just another option that he might. He's never thrown to his tight ends, so that's why I loved having Fields in there because then he at least had a shot. But it's just more of a. It's still a better situation getting more weapons on the field just to open it up because
100%.
Freiermuth has proven that he can beat almost every linebacker that you need. So if he's there and you need him as his security blanket, he's going to be far more open than what he did. So I'm really excited about that. But before we wrap up, we gotta give some love and a shout out to my boy Bryce Young, baby.
Let's not we. You do. I don't. I know.
Look,
go for
last few weeks. I thought Bryce Young has been playing for the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud's been playing for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, let's just call a spade here. Well, man, you take out all the weapons that Houston has, and then what happens? Wow, he looks like Bryce Young. So all those people with the slander for Bryce Young saying he's not a good quarterback, maybe, it was coaching, and it was not having offensive talent. And maybe C.J. Stroud isn't a god and not the next Patrick Mahomes. It's just interesting, And you know what? I'm so mad at Xavier Legette for that interception that's counted to Bryce Young last week because that should be a fumble on Legette because it was right in his hands and it was a perfect pass. People are saying it's underthrown. They don't know ball because it was right over that defender's head and it was a perfect spot.
You want to talk about some special scoring? That's what I want. I want interceptions that aren't quarterback's fault to not come against them. When they're batted balls, when they're tipped, something like that. I don't think they, the quarterbacks always should be punished for that. There's some that it's just not their fault, or it's just so fluky. Let's just, look away.
You put a bow on it. I agree totally. I wanted to give some love to Bryce Young because he's been through it this year and he's been playing some good football the last 2 weeks. That do you even put Andy Dalton back in? So
and Carolina, evidently teams were calling at the trade deadline for Bryce Young. Carolina said no. So
their 2 wins, they fired Dennis Allen after the game. And who else has Carolina beat? I don't know. I think they beat the Raiders, and they got that guy fired too, Luke Getsy. So it's just more of a it's an interesting time.
Yeah, because at this point, Carolina is they're fourth in the draft order. It's New England, Jacksonville, Saints, Carolina, Cleveland, Vegas Giants all have 2 wins.
So yeah, I mean, and they shipped off a lot of their pieces, like Jonathan Mingo. Yeah, Adam Thielen's you're gonna see how good Jalen Coker is, and so it's going to be interesting to see. And their defense isn't that bad. They have some good pieces on their defense. Like, they've been playing bad, obviously, because they're on the field all the time. Their line isn't too bad, I don't think. So just more of a, all right, what can we do to, like, if I'm 4th overall, I'm probably taking the lineman first, because I know there's going to be weapons in the draft later. They already have Jonathan Brooke. They already have Jatavian Sanders. So they have the young pieces with running back and tight end as well. So then it's wide receiver they need to get in the second.
I will point out, Sanders has looked pretty good over the last few weeks. His target share over the last 5, I believe. 5 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets, and 4 of the last 5. So 87, 61, 49, and 3 of the last 4. So it's not bad. Not bad coming from the Carolina offense and a rookie tight end.
Not bad for a tight end this year, too. So
no kidding. No kidding.
Perfect. Well, I think that wraps it up, Brian. Where can we find you at?
Well, if you're looking for more of me, if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at @too_much_Brian. More videos I will have on the Fantasy Football Advice Network on the YouTube page. Too Much Fantasy Football coming at you 5 days a week. And then, of course, here, me and Cody talking Dynasty coming at you every other week. We'll have another show right before Thanksgiving. The week before Thanksgiving we'll get you, and then right after the holiday we'll come back at you for a cleanup duty of the holiday festivities. But Cody, what about you? Where are the people finding you?
You can find me on X, or formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Folden. Find all my other stuff, my written work and everything, at Dynasty Pros, and you can find me on the YouTube page here at Dynasty Pros.
That's where you find us, folks. That's where we're at. If you want to find us on Thursday night, Sunday night, we're going to be sitting on the couch watching football at YouTube. Good luck, folks.